Hello guys, you are seeing Prime News Australia, where we show you the latest and important news of Australia in the fastest and reliable way. So come, let's start by not delaying. 25 big updates of the Australia, especially for you. Before proceeding in the video, comment by commenting from which state you are watching, and also like video, so that YouTube can reach this video to more people of Australia. Australia's labour market showed stability as the unemployment rate stayed at 4.1% in January. Government data indicates that while full-time employment grew slightly, part-time jobs declined, keeping overall figures balanced. Economists say this suggests the economy is cooling gradually, without entering a sharp slowdown. The Reserve Bank is closely watching these numbers as wage growth and inflation remain key concerns. For workers, job security remains relatively strong, but businesses are cautious about new hiring. The steady unemployment rate offers relief to households facing rising living costs, while policymakers view it as a sign that current economic measures are working without causing large-scale job losses. The Australian government has used seldom-invoked terror exclusion laws to ban a citizen suspected of ties to Islamic State from returning from a Syrian camp. The temporarily barred individual is among dozens of Australians in detention there, many of whom include women and children. Canberra's decision reflects national security concerns and has sparked domestic debate about repatriation policy and humanitarian obligations. Australians continue to struggle with high grocery prices, energy bills, rent, and insurance costs. Despite inflation easing slightly, everyday expenses remain elevated, putting pressure on middle and low-income families. Community groups report increased demand for food banks and financial counseling. The government has promised targeted relief through energy rebates and tax adjustments, but critics argue these measures are not enough. Economists warn that prolonged cost of living stress could reduce consumer spending, slowing economic growth. Many households are cutting discretionary spending, delaying major purchases, and relying more on credit to manage monthly expenses. Australia's national debt has reached its highest level in decades due to increased spending on health, defense, disaster recovery, and social support programs. While officials argue the debt remains manageable compared to other developed nations, opposition leaders have raised concerns about long-term sustainability. Interest payments are increasing, reducing the government's flexibility in future budgets. Economists stress the need for careful fiscal planning to balance growth and responsibility. Human rights groups are urging the government to bring back Australian citizens, including children, from detention camps in conflict-affected regions. They argue that prolonged detention causes psychological harm and violates international obligations. Security agencies, however, warn of potential risks if individuals with extremist links return. The issue has sparked political debate about balancing national security with humanitarian responsibility. Legal experts say clearer policies are needed to avoid case-by-case uncertainty. Private health insurance premiums have increased by the largest margin in years, placing additional strain on households. Insurers cite rising hospital costs, medical technology expenses, and an aging population as key reasons. Consumer groups warn that higher premiums may push younger Australians out of private health cover, increasing pressure on the public system. The government says it is monitoring the situation and encouraging competition among insurers. Critics argue stronger regulation is needed to ensure affordability and transparency in the health insurance sector. Australia's housing crisis continues as property prices and rents remain high across major cities and regional areas. Limited housing supply, population growth, and construction delays have worsened the situation. Renters face intense competition and frequent price increases, while first home buyers struggle to save deposits. Governments at all levels are under pressure to accelerate housing construction and reform planning laws. Floods, bushfires, and heat waves are placing growing pressure on Australia's emergency response systems. Climate experts say extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and severe. Recent disasters have caused widespread property damage and disrupted communities. Emergency services report staff fatigue and funding challenges as they respond to repeated crises. Governments are investing in disaster preparedness and resilience, but critics say more long-term planning is needed. Insurance costs are also rising in high-risk areas, adding to financial stress for residents. Australia is expanding its renewable energy capacity, with new solar, wind, and battery projects coming online. The government aims to reduce emissions while ensuring energy reliability. Supporters say renewables will lower power costs over time and create jobs. However, critics warn about grid stability and the need for backup power sources. Regional communities are divided, with some welcoming investment and others concerned about land use. Energy policy remains a major political issue nationwide. Schools across Australia are struggling to recruit and retain teachers, particularly in regional and remote areas. Heavy workloads, burnout, and pay concerns are driving many educators to leave the profession. Governments are offering incentives such as scholarships and relocation bonuses, but unions say systemic reforms are needed. Teacher shortages are impacting student learning, with larger class sizes and reduced subject options in some schools. Australian universities are dealing with financial pressure due to changing international student numbers and rising operational costs. While enrollments are recovering, competition remains strong. Universities are cutting costs, restructuring courses, and seeking alternative funding sources. Academics warn that reduced funding could affect research quality and global rankings. Education remains a key export sector, making its stability crucial for the economy. Australia has increased defense spending to modernize its military and strengthen alliances. Officials cite growing strategic uncertainty in the Indo-Pacific region. Investments include submarines, cyber capabilities, and missile defense. Supporters argue this ensures national security, while critics question the cost and long-term commitments. Defense policy is becoming a central topic in foreign relations and domestic debate. Businesses and government agencies are facing increased cyber attacks, including data breaches and ransomware incidents. Authorities warn that cybercrime poses a major risk to national security and economic stability. New laws and funding aim to improve cyber resilience, but experts stress the importance of public awareness. Small businesses remain particularly vulnerable due to limited resources. Talks around Indigenous recognition and reconciliation remain ongoing. Community leaders emphasize the need for meaningful consultation and practical outcomes. While progress has been made in some areas, many Indigenous Australians continue to face disadvantages in health, education, and housing. The national conversation reflects broader questions about identity, history, and equality. Major transport projects, including rail and road upgrades, are underway across several states. Governments say these projects will reduce congestion and support economic growth. However, delays and cost overruns have drawn criticism. Residents near construction zones report disruptions, while planners argue long-term benefits outweigh short-term inconvenience. Australian retailers are adjusting to increased online shopping and cautious consumer spending. Many businesses are investing in digital platforms and streamlining operations. Smaller retailers face challenges competing with larger chains. Industry analysts say innovation and customer experience will be key to survival. Tourism is gradually rebounding, with domestic travel strong and international visitors returning. Regional destinations are benefiting from increased interest, but labor shortages persist. Operators are optimistic but cautious, focusing on sustainable growth and workforce development. Australian athletes have delivered strong performances in international competitions, lifting national spirits. Sports officials highlight the importance of grassroots investment to sustain success. Participation rates are rising, particularly among youth, though access and affordability remain concerns. Demand for mental health support continues to rise, particularly among young people. Clinics report long waiting lists, and professionals call for increased funding. The government has announced new initiatives, but advocates say more comprehensive reforms are needed. Australia is reviewing its immigration settings to address workforce shortages while managing population growth. Skilled migration remains a priority, but housing and infrastructure pressures complicate policy decisions. The debate reflects broader economic and social considerations. Small business owners are calling for tax relief and reduced red tape. Rising costs and uncertain demand are key challenges. Governments say they are consulting with industry groups to improve conditions and encourage entrepreneurship. New conservation programs aim to protect endangered species and ecosystems. Environmental groups welcome the initiatives, but argue stronger enforcement is needed. Balancing development and conservation remains a complex issue. Banks are under increased scrutiny over lending practices and customer fees. Regulators emphasize consumer protection and transparency. Financial institutions say compliance costs are rising, but trust remains a priority. Australia's tech sector is expanding, driven by startups and innovation hubs. Investment in artificial intelligence and clean technology is increasing. Skills shortages remain a challenge, prompting calls for education reform. State governments are reviewing public transport pricing and services. Commuters demand affordability and reliability, while operators face rising maintenance costs. Public transport remains central to urban planning.